Hi everyone, a build report and a demo of the Dinky Drive, Madbean Dinky Drive. It's supposed to be emulated on the Bad Cat Mini Cat 2. I'll let you decide whether it sounds like that or not. It's got a picture of a cat on the front because, long story short, the name Lamsanite. I have a Manx cat and I call her the Lamsanite. It's a long story, but that's just my nickname for her. And I figured it was appropriate to name the pedal that because it's based on a bad cat, and I'm often calling her a bad cat, so that's the story behind the name. The actual the controls are pretty complicated to explain. They're not very intuitive. Basically, it's got a couple of tricks up its sleeve. It's not that versatile though. Particularly with the range on the tone. Once you get it in the right spot, you pretty much just leave it there. It's and they interact in a very weird way. I know they're supposed to be like the Bad Cat amps have an interactive bass and treble. You turn one up and it affects the other one. I think this sort of does a similar sort of thing, but it's it doesn't quite work the same for some reason. I don't know if that's something that the Mini Cat does as well, but I don't find it it works quite the same as my Hot Cat does anyway. The gain pretty much does nothing up till about halfway, and then you start to get a bit of gain towards the end. The gain is actually based on how you actually bias the trim pots inside, because it uses two FETs, with the FETs being the small component equivalent of a tube. So there's two FETs inside, and then you've just got to bias them to where you think it sounds the best. I've actually biased them to have a relatively low amount of gain because I personally think that the sweet spot for this is in the lower end, and once you start cranking it up, it doesn't sound very good. Maybe that's got something to do with the actual amp, because the Mini Cat amp doesn't have that much gain. It's a pretty low gain sort of amp, so maybe it's related to that. I don't know. For this, I personally thought it sounded best with the trim pots turned back a bit, just to cut back a bit on the gain, and just use the first part of the gain. I thought was the best part of it. I'm not even going to bother opening it up because, well, there's no point. I haven't done any mods. The only thing I've done is set the trim pots. So I'll just show you a few sound samples now and see what you think of it. It's, like I said, it's a bit of a maybe a two-trick pony, unfortunately. But the tricks that it does do are pretty good ones, I suppose. But I'll let you decide what you think of it. So here comes the demo. Just a couple of things actually with the finish. I mentioned this in one of my other videos. It's a bit of a noob tip, but if you're new to this stuff, just make sure that if your enclosure is a dark colour, that you don't use a colour decal. Colours don't come through very well on water slide. For this, I think I did the pot labels orange with a drop shadow, and you can't actually see any orange. All you can see is the drop shadow. It just doesn't come through. Particularly orange and red is a bad combination. You're not going to be able to see any of the orange. Some of the lighter colours you might see some colours come through, but it tends to change the colours, turns them into different colours anyway. So I only usually use colours on white enclosures. If it's any other colour, I just use black, because yeah, you're just not sure what's going to happen when you actually put it on the enclosure. The other thing too is the decal. I printed it at 90 DPI. At that stage, I didn't know that you're supposed to print it at a higher DPI. Pretty much 300, 600, whatever your printer can handle. The higher the better. If it's too low, it comes out like, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but on that label in particular, you can see in person that it's very pixelated and rough looking. If that was at 600 DPI, it'd be nice and sharp. So yeah, just make sure that you increase the DPI of your document before you print it. Before you start working on it, and then print it at 300 or 600, and you won't get that the pixelation of the decal. So I'm going to actually do a sound sample of my amp to the Bad Cat Hot Cat, just for the hell of it. It's not a very fair comparison, in all honesty, but they're both Bad Cats, so I just thought I'll just tack on a sound sample of the actual amp at the end. I'm worried it's actually probably going to blow away this poor pedal, but yeah, I thought you might be curious to hear a Bad Cat, the overdrive of a Bad Cat in comparison to the pedal as well. So I'll put that on the end of it. It's not a mini cat. It's the Hot Cat 30. So it's not even the same amp that this one's based on. But yeah, I just thought I'll just put it on the end anyway. So here we go. It's enough of the bill report. Let's get to the sound samples.